welcome to the Refined Strength Podcast. This is a solo episode with your host, Rachel Sedgwick. And I wanted to record this podcast that ended up being based on a question I got from a client. So the question was about high rocks. And it's a very trendy topic for a lot of people. The question was, I have been thinking about maybe doing a high rocks race because a friend asked me to do it. And my initial thought was that it seems like it might be complementary to bodybuilding. And this athlete, she's been wanting to compete. She wants to do bikini. And we're currently in a more or less health and growth and foundation building phase for her. So we're not yet ready to start a prep, but we're also working on her health and habits and things like that. And my response to her was just, supportive of, if you want to do high rocks, obviously you can do that. We can totally change your goal anytime. But I did have to explain that it is different than bodybuilding. They're not complementary goals, really. They are different goals. So while one can do both, if they really wanted to try both, nothing's wrong with doing both necessarily. But if you want to be great at one of them, it will come at the expense of the other one because of how they're different. High rocks is very functional, very endurance focused, very aerobic activity, endurance based, and bodybuilding is pretty much the opposite. It's very rigid. It's very much about structure, precision, in training for hypertrophy and symmetry, whereas high rocks, it is really not a strength-based sport. There's a few slightly strength-based movements and actions in it, but it's much more endurance and high rep, high demand of your aerobic capacities. Anyway, it led me to wanting to do this podcast, which is on why do we choose bodybuilding in the first place? Because bodybuilding is something that a lot of us see on social media, especially people in kind of younger age ranges. So anywhere from, teenage years up through their mid-20s. A lot of those people that are getting into bodybuilding, they're not necessarily getting into it because they love training and they love building muscle. They're getting into it because of what it looks like on social media. And while, again, there's nothing really wrong with that, I'm not the one to say your why has to be like this or that. But in order for you to sustain your goals in bodybuilding, you do have to love the deliberate practice of building a physique that would do well on stage, because nobody likes to step on stage feeling like they don't belong. When you're starting out in bodybuilding and you first get a coach, or you're self-coached maybe, or you're following your favorite influencer's training program or whatever it is you're doing to get started, you might not be thinking about longevity in the sport because you don't even know if you like it that much. You've never done it before. So you start working out, you start enjoying the process of seeing your body change, and it's cool. But generally what happens is you're very much focused on the outside and not as much on the inside, and what it really takes to build a physique that does get lean enough to get on stage, or building a physique that is healthy enough to not only sustain a long prep, but come out of that prep in a healthy manner, in a way that continues that sustainability and longevity in your life and in the sport. So bodybuilding, it's a sport, and a lot of people feel, and I feel this way too, that it is an art of creating a physique through really deliberate, controlled, progressive stress. And stress isn't a bad thing in that way. So stress can be looked at as something that's negative, but if you really want to master stress in all of its forms, you can look at it as more of a positive. So looking at it as something that you get to control. Some stresses we don't get to control, right? We don't get to control the fact that there's an accident on the highway and it causes traffic and it makes us late to work. We don't get to control the stress of, if you have a child or children screaming in the other room while you're trying to get in your workout or do your meal prep or whatever you're trying to do. But some stress we do basically invite into our lives, especially as bodybuilders, which is training. Training is a stress. Making sure you are eating enough food in a growth phase, or eating less food in a specific amount in a cutting phase or a prep phase. So it's a sport where it does demand a lot of organization, not only of harder things here just in your life, but it also requires you to be very organized mentally, being able to look long term. If I have the goal of stepping on stage and I have set the goal of doing well on stage, then I have to set all of these smaller goals early on. And I have to know that it's going to take X amount of time. We don't know how much until you start, and you start seeing how you progress. Your coach starts to know your body, and then you have other phases. So you have a foundation phase, you have a building phase, you have a pre-prep phase, a prep phase, reverse diet phase, rinse and repeat if you're going to keep repeating it. So it demands a lot of us. It demands how, like, basically changing almost everything that we do day to day. And if you're getting into bodybuilding, again, only for the things that you see externally that look really fun, like getting on stage, getting glammed, looking jacked, getting shredded, those things are cool. There's no one that's going to deny that. They are cool, but they are not what makes you a bodybuilder, and they're not what is going to make you a successful bodybuilder. So with the people who choose bodybuilding because they just want a challenge, they need something new, or they're bored with their training, or some people, mostly women, they get into bodybuilding because they are really unhappy with their bodies. Men do this too. But when you are unhappy with your body and you set the goal of getting on stage in a extreme state of your body, like extremely lean state that our bodies are not meant to be at, then you're going to have a rude awakening, because it is hard to watch yourself go through what it takes to get there and then find out at the end of it that it was never that stage look that was going to make you happy, because you get there and you realize it's pretty hard, and it can be even miserable to get to that point. Now, we don't do this just because of that misery. Most of us who have been doing this for a long time do it because we love the entire part of the process. We love the building. We love training. We love the challenge of competing, but we don't get bored with those things. And if you are getting into bodybuilding because of some lacking or some boredom, or you need a goal to keep you motivated, then not saying that you're not going to be successful. People do this all the time, but you might have a hard time coming out of it and finding out that you don't really know what you want. And you realize, well, getting shredded didn't actually make me happy. It didn't make things better. It actually made some things worse. Some people think that they'll get the confidence from getting shredded and getting lean and looking a certain way or winning a trophy, and that level of confidence or achievement will impact everything in their lives positively. And that's not always the case. A lot of times when you are all in on a goal like bodybuilding that affects all parts of your life, diet, training, cardio, food, supplementation, like social events, all of these things, you go all in, you end up putting other things on the back burner, and maybe you end up treating people a little differently. Maybe you end up treating yourself differently. And then you get to the end of it and it's over, and you don't know what you really have left. Your life is kind of almost in shambles because you so focused solely on the bodybuilding goal rather than how does this bodybuilding goal add to my life? How do other things get to thrive while I'm also doing bodybuilding? Because it is possible, but you do have to have a really strong mindset going into your bodybuilding journey, whether you're starting a prep or whether you're starting an off season with a new coach or something like that, starting a foundational phase. You need to have the ability to let it all work together. People say there's no such thing as balance, and they're right. There's no such thing as this like beautiful, easy, naturally occurring balance, but every single person has a different life. And every person has different circumstances and situations and histories and wants, needs, goals, whatever, preferences as well. And so if you are able to look at your life and look at this new goal of bodybuilding and see how can I design my life around this goal without sacrificing my true values in life. You're going to have to make sacrifices, things like your food, maybe some social events. You'll have to sacrifice some bad habits. But at the end of the day, those sacrifices, those are good for you anyway, right? Even if you weren't bodybuilding. But if you can sacrifice those things design the rest of your life more or less so it is complementary to the person you want to become, then you're going to have a much better time becoming that person, and you're going to be better equipped to actually achieve what you want in bodybuilding. The sport will outlast surface level motivation. And, a lot of people, I have athletes who are a little newer and they ask me, how do you stay motivated? Or what do you do when you have a day that really just throws you on your ass? And what do you do in that situation? And my answer is always, well, I love what I do. I love training. I love eating to a point where I feel really good and I know it's helping me work towards my goal of becoming a figure Olympian. I also love being busy at work in my business because I'm helping people. I'm spreading good vibes, right? With my podcast, or my social media, or whatever it is. And I love seeing people achieve things. And so, yes, parts of my job or parts of bodybuilding can be difficult and can even be taxing or exhausting or frustrating, but I do them because I love them. And so the people that have trouble with motivation, especially early on in their career, it's usually because they started out on whatever their journey was without that strong why, and without that why being about love of the little things and the big things that lead you to the goal. So loving the gym, loving lifting, loving challenging yourself. That's a really, really big one, because society as a whole and just the world around us is not designed to, it's designed to make us want to not be challenged. It's designed to make everything easy. Think about, you have your phone. You have this, literally the world at your fingertips. Anything you don't know, you can ask ChatGPT. Anything you're searching for, anything you're craving, you can order it. You can view it. You can consume it on your phone or on your computer or whatever you want. You can seek validation by posting on social media. You can even fake a lot of what you want to fake using AI, right? Or Photoshop or whatever you want. You can create whatever life you want very easily, or at least create the image of what you want easily on your phone. But that's not necessarily great for your brain. It's not great for your longevity, and it's definitely not going to help you with bodybuilding. ChatGPT might be able to write you a program, and that's cheaper than going to a coach, but is that going to really help you progress in your goals of bodybuilding? Is it going to tell you could have worked harder? Because ChatGPT is a validation machine. So if you say hey, could I have worked harder? It's probably going to say maybe, but you did a pretty good job, And that's the beauty of having a coach, is to help you see the areas where you can improve so that you can reach your goals. Me telling someone hey, this needs to be better, this needs to slow down, you need to train with more intensity, that's not for me, that's for them, because you told me your goal. So you have to love seeing what the body can do. You have to love the ritual and the consistency. If you're someone who really craves newness and changing everything all the time, if you crave things being novel and you crave things in general, you're gonna have a harder time with bodybuilding. That's just the fact of it. With going back to bodybuilding versus high rocks, they're very different goals. So you have bodybuilding, it's very controlled, it's pretty slow, it's more precise, there's not a lot of variability. Whereas high rocks, there's lots of variety, there's lots of high output, metabolic, almost chaotic energy, and it's fun for people that love that. But while bodybuilding requires you to build and sustain your muscle, whether you're building in an off season or sustaining it, even maybe building in a prep, then high rocks isn't going to help you with that. So if you want to be great at bodybuilding, you probably won't be great at high rocks, and it might even come at a detriment to bodybuilding. So how to evaluate your why? These are kind of self-discovery questions for anyone listening, because I'm a firm believer that you, the listener, whoever you are, whatever you're working towards right now, you're not necessarily going to get a lot out of something, whether it's a book, a podcast, a speech, or a social media post, if all you're consuming is people telling you what to do. I can tell a client, here's what you do. Here is everything you need on a silver platter, but they might not do it because A, they haven't built the trust in me yet. That's okay. We got to build that over time. But they also haven't built the trust in themselves. And that is the key, I think, to overall success in whatever you want to do, is to figure out who you are. And you will not figure out who you are by only reading things and being told things and things like that. So these are tangible questions that I think will help people as they just go throughout their journey. Especially if you feel like you are having trouble really just sticking to your plan, like you want the bodybuilding goal, but you're not in that place yet where discipline just happens automatically. You have to build that automatic discipline. And again, you have to build it through loving what you're doing. And I think you can probably love what you're doing more if you learn more about yourself. So, do I love lifting enough to repeat the same movements for years? Because if you don't, you might not have a fun time. You might be better off with High Rocks or CrossFit or something where it's constantly varied movement. With bodybuilding, there's only so many ways to do a hip thrust. There's only so many bicep curl variations, right? You have to be able to basically do a lot of the same things just every single day and eat some of the same things every day. People are plenty successful eating a diet with a lot of variety, with some variety, but when you're able to be really consistent with things and then track your progress within that consistency over years, change things up from time to time as your body shows the need to, then you're able to really understand how your body works and how it performs its best. I perform best with this amount of food before my workout, or this type of food source, this type of protein source versus this protein or carb source, or whatever it is. Ask yourself, do I have a growth mindset or a scarcity mindset? If you have a growth mindset, that means whatever it takes to grow, you're going to do it. Whether it's a question your coach asks you, whether it's a new protocol in your training, diet, drugs, supplements, whatever. You have a growth mindset, which means you are open to change. I have a tattoo, not there, on my neck. It's an unclosed delta, and it means open to change. Because one of the things that I learned from myself and from my life, and a lot of mistakes that I've made, is change is the only constant. And the more open we can be to change, the better we're going to be able to affect change. So I had a lot of changes in my life that year before I got that tattoo. Like, I had gotten divorced, I had moved across the country, I had switched coaches, I had had a really terrible prep, and it was a beautiful thing because of who I became the year after that and who I have then now since become, since I just really leaned into being more open to change. So being in a growth mindset means you are open to change, not just changing yourself, but changing your mind, changing your habits, changing who you identify as, because your identity is going to be changing all the time too. As you gain new insights, as you gain new experiences, as you achieve things, as you fail, you're going to change. The little thing you do changes you. A scarcity mindset is mostly about always trying to stay the same or always trying to control something. If you are always trying to be in control, if you're telling your coach, well, I know my body and I know this works better for me, but you never even truly tried the thing your coach is asking you to do, or, a judge tells you at your show, you really need to grow, you need to fill this out, you need to bring this out, don't change this, change that, but you say like, I don't know, I think I just need to get leaner, and you just do another show, and then you get told the same feedback. That's a scarcity mindset. So focusing on the growth mindset and how can I grow from this? What is going to help me grow more than I've grown so far? You're going to get further ahead. Do I want to build a physique, or do I just want to be challenged by something new and exciting? Am I looking for am I truly looking for a long-term goal to achieve and work towards for years, just like everybody else successful in the sport is doing? Or am I just seeking newness and novelty? Because if you're only seeking newness and novelty, that's okay to admit that, but it means that prepping for a bodybuilding show just might not be for you right now. All right. Other questions. Does the idea of refining my body and refining my habits and making sacrifices excite me? Or is it just the idea of competing? Because that is probably the most powerful one for finding your why on when it comes to bodybuilding, is what is the most exciting thing to me? Is it challenging myself? Is it shaping and shifting my identity? Is it learning new things that I've never learned before and never done before? Or is it just the idea of getting on stage and posting about it on social media? Be 1000% honest with yourself, because if you are, you will find the answer and you'll figure out what you really need. Because if you just like the idea of competing, I don't know, you can try it, but you're probably not going to be happy by the end of it. And sometimes people do need to learn the hard way. They need to learn that just liking the idea of getting on stage isn't enough, because if you just like that idea and you get on stage not being very competitive because you didn't listen to the coach that told you needed more time to grow, you're not going to be happy with yourself. And you're probably not even going to be happy with the coach that told you that, because you're going to feel like they know they told you so. And that's just not a fun dynamic to have, honestly. So another part of this is just understanding that bodybuilding is identity work, not just physical work. So I posted on my social media today, this is Friday, this is going up on Monday, but I posted today about just how bodybuilding and coaching specifically can change your life. And the reason it can change your life is that how we coach at Refined Strength, me, Daraja, and Jess, we coach with the individual in mind. We coach with their humanity and their identity in mind. So we're not just giving you a PDF with a training program on it that 20, 30, 100 other girls or men got. We're giving you something special. It is not just a program that's like, everyone has a perfectly different and unique program, because like I said, you can't reinvent the wheel so much, but you're getting something that's built for you. And then you're getting coaching. You're getting to be in a special club, the Refined Strength Training Club. You're getting to be in this special club where you get the insight and advice and guidance, and you get the challenge, not just physically, but you get it mentally. Because every single person, no matter who they are, they have shit going on up here that is holding them back from what they really want. We all have these things. One of mine is time management, honestly. There's some things that I spend too much time on that I should probably have my assistant do, or I should probably just not do it all, or maybe not think about so much. And that way I could put time more into other things. But I'm working through that. We all have those things. So the coaching aspect is like, you can hire a coach that all they do is send you your macros, send you your meal plan, send you your training program, and gives you tweaks every week. Or you can have a coach that is actively engaged and invested in changing your life. That is hard to come by, I'll be honest, but it is what we do. And so we're very proud of what we do in that. But the reason we do it isn't because we're trying to just, offer something different for our own personal gain. Obviously, we do gain personally from coaching. It's what we do for a living. It's how I pay my bills. But we coach this way because we have been coached the opposite way. We have been coached with, no individuality. I've been coached with dangerous protocols. I've been coached with not much care or concern for not only me, my health, but also my success in the sport. If you look me up on NPC News Online, you'll see that I had 6 pro shows between 2019 and 2021 where I looked like shit for a pro level figure competitor standard. And I was there because I was holding myself back and I was being held back. So, my programming wasn't what it needed to be for me to succeed, but also it wasn't what it needed to be for me to become a better person. And I wasn't doing what I needed to become a better person. So what we have all learned is that, yeah, you can bodybuild and find some success without really giving a shit about who you are as a person or your identity or anything like that. But you get so much more out of it by working on yourself first and then focusing more on bodybuilding. If you learn yourself, learn who you are, learn about the habits, build the foundation, and really refine that foundation, then you get to have a lot more fun because you're going to be a lot more successful and you're going to have a much more healthy and balanced mind going into something like a growth phase or a prep phase or a reverse diet or something like that are more extreme niched phases. So with the side of this of like, if you are ready or not ready, like, have I established, if you're wondering, have I established, am I ready to bodybuild? Do I have a strong enough why? You have to look at what you've been doing, how long you've been doing it, what gets you the most excited, like I talked about, and ask questions. Ask questions of yourself, ask questions of your coach. Am I doing my very best? Is there something that I could be doing better? The athletes that I love to see these check-ins, the athletes that typically respond the best and have the most hope, honestly, in their sport and in their goal are the people that regularly ask, what could I be doing better? The people that think that they're doing just enough and they're fine, and they maybe even get a little triggered if I tell them you could be doing better or you could be pushing harder. Those people, it's not that they won't succeed, it's that they still have things to learn. They still have an ego to let go of some more. And ego in general will hold you back so much. We think ego pushes us forward. We push the weight on an exercise because I know I should be able to do this. But if it gets you injured, or if it makes it, or if it means you're lifting with just momentum, or you're doing half range of motion, then is it really making you better? Probably not. Your ego holds you back. So thinking about, you probably need more time if you really don't love growing. This is important for especially smaller divisions like bikini specifically. But if a bikini competitor is looking at a bikini Olympian, like a top 5 bikini Olympian, and how they train, and they just try to train how they train, and they take as short of off seasons as those women do, then they're probably not going to get there very fast. Because a bikini Olympian is pretty much perfect, right? She is one of the best of the best. And that means she doesn't have a lot to grow. She doesn't have a lot to really fine tune. The work that she's doing is mostly maintenance work of what she already has. The women at the top of the sport and the men at the top of the sport, they have been doing this for years, many of which have been doing it for 10 plus. I have been competing for 10 years. I have been lifting and training and finding my love of training for about 13, 14. I started training just like kind of half-assed learning about the gym in 2012. And then I slowly got a little bit more serious, did my first show in 2015. I've taken 1-year off seasons, I've taken 9-month off seasons, I've taken 3-year off seasons, and the best season I ever had was after the longest off season I ever had. That is not a coincidence. So if you want something to be hard, but you don't really like structure, you're not there yet. You haven't gotten to a place where you're going to be successful in bodybuilding. You need to like and enjoy structure. I love it when I start to hear an athlete say in their check-ins after they've been traveling or have just like kind of a chaotic time that they're craving their routine again. They're craving structure, because that's change starting to happen. They went from kind of being all over the place and maybe not having a lot of structure in their lives to then implementing structure because their coach told them to and gave them that structure and told them that it's important. And now they actually crave that. And there often is kind of an identity crisis in that sometimes, where someone doesn't even realize how much they don't like their old lifestyle yet. And so sometimes they go back to their old lifestyle in a way, like maybe drinking or partying or traveling a lot and not really tracking their food. And then they realize after weeks or a time of doing that, that they actually really wish they had just lived with the structure that they've learned recently. But sometimes we have to learn the hard way. If you already track your food, you already eat mindfully, you already really love training, you've spent enough time building to know like the stage is just a side effect, it's just a part of the process, it's not the process, that is a big sign that you are ready to do this. One of the things that I think is the most important about finding your why and knowing if you have the right why is understanding why challenging yourself is with new or difficult things is actually good for you. Going back to the thing I said about just the world and things being easy and very accessible and things like that, bodybuilding isn't like that. If it was like that, if it was extremely accessible, then it would not be as niche of a sport as it is. But when you are doing a bodybuilding show, even if you come in last place, a lot of the time you are still in the 1 to 5% of just human beings and how they act and how they support themselves and take care of themselves and show up for themselves. So challenges are good for us. And the reason they're good for us, there's a few reasons, but one being how the brain changes when you do hard things. So it's good for neuroplasticity. When difficult tasks, they stimulate your neuroplasticity, basically the brain's ability to rewire itself. You create new neural pathways. You strengthen your existing neural pathways. You enhance your brain's long-term ability to learn. And the reason training and bodybuilding fits with this and fits with neuroplasticity is that you're constantly trying to do those things. You're trying to refine your motor patterns. You're telling yourself, I can do this weight even though I've never done it before. Or you're listening to someone tell you can do something even though you've never done it or you failed the last time you tried to do it. And as soon as you do the thing, even if you don't do perfectly at it, you at least did it versus the past you 5 minutes ago didn't think you could do it. You're instantly telling your brain that it is okay to push yourself and it's actually good. So if you understand the brain and how it works, our brains are always trying to perceive and avoid threats. So we get into the gym and we're under heavy weight, we're naturally going to perceive a threat. But if you try to get better at putting yourself in that harm's way that your brain thinks it's in, and then living through it and actually loving it and enjoying it because like, oh my God, I just lifted that weight. Your brain's going to release endorphins. That's why it does that, is because it's like, oh, I survived. It's great. This is awesome. I'm going to do that again. I'm going to tell someone about it. I'm going to post on social media. I'm going to be, excited about it. That over time builds your brain into a challenge seeking and challenge achieving machine. So it's really good for you. Deliberate difficulty also helps regulate your dopamine. So a lot of people have kind of a dopamine addiction. So that's why they seek out drugs or they seek out novelty or new things, or they're always trying to switch things or think about something different to do. But bodybuilding trains your opposite, which is just the regulation and stabilizing by sustaining your focus, having steady daily discipline, focusing on internal rewards like I'm getting stronger, I'm getting better from this, rather than just external rewards like look at that pump I have or look at this trophy I have or whatever. So you build dopamine over time from mastery and progress, not just chaos. So also hard things, this is kind of one of my favorite things, is that hard things build resilience. So it builds stress resilience specifically. So I've talked about resilience before. In the last podcast, I talked about how resilience is your ability, how fast you're able to return to baseline after a really low, like a loss, or after a really high, like a big win. So when you're exposing yourself to a controlled difficulty, like I am asking for this difficult thing by I'm dieting on low food, I'm doing this cardio when I don't want to, I'm waking up early and going to stretch instead of just staying in bed and hitting snooze, you're teaching your nervous system that stress is safe, at least this kind of stress. Because a lot of times, like the stress that we feel is often just like our body telling us that like, oh my God, this is dangerous. Even though something like a deadline at work or cardio in the morning when you don't want to do it, that's not dangerous. It's just there. It's just something that we don't want to do because it feels a little threatening in our mind. And the mind does the same thing to that stress that it did thousands of years ago when, we were stressed by something chasing us, right? So you're reducing your negativity, you're improving your ability to stay calm under pressure, you're building a larger just window of tolerance. So if I can tolerate doing everything I'm doing as a bodybuilder better, then I'm not going to be as stressed about it. And then it's going to be more fun for me, and I'm going to enjoy it, and I'm going to be able to do it for longer. So if I can do 5 minutes of this cardio session, I can do 25, right? If I can do 1 week of these low days in my prep, I can do another 2 days. So if I can been in this prep for 20 weeks, I can do it for 2 more, that kind of thing. If I've been in this off season for this long, I can probably do another 3 months, right? So repetition also just builds that pattern recognition and low motor learning. So every rep, so to speak, not just reps in the gym, but rep of like, I got through another hard day, I got through another day of work, I got through another cardio session or a training session when I didn't want to. That tells your brain that you're trying to become more efficient. So it becomes more efficient. Your mastery ends up feeling really satisfying. So that's your brain adapting and recognizing your improvement and then building confidence. So if you're more confident in yourself, you're more likely to do the things that added to that confidence, because your brain will, instead of seek out negativity, it will start seeking out the things that made it feel good. So I'm going to seek out that cardio. I'm excited to do my cardio in the morning because I did it yesterday and I didn't want to do it, but I did it anyway. And I felt great afterwards. And then I didn't have to do it the rest of the day, right? So then I'm excited to do it today. I'm excited to eat this small ass meal in my prep because I know it's going to help me get to where I want to go. And I'm excited to reverse diet and stick to my reverse diet because I know it's going to make a better off season. So all of these things can be repeated and refined throughout multiple phases of bodybuilding. So with all of this, I hope that the takeaway is that your why behind bodybuilding, whatever it is, there's nothing wrong with it. But if you want to be truly successful in the sport, you have to be about it. There's no escaping training. There's no escaping challenge and difficulty. There's no escaping the boundaries that you have to set with people or with yourself. There's just no escaping those things. You're always going to have to do those things. So you can either listen to someone who's been there and who coaches a lot of athletes who do these things and then succeed, not only succeed, but they also just feel better about themselves and they enjoy the process, not just the fun, exciting part of the process, but the less talked about or less glorified part of the process. You can listen to these things and just try to apply one thing that you've learned. If you can apply one thing that you've learned from anything that you listen to, read, or hear, or consume, and just try it and see how it works, you're already in a better place than most people. Because most people, while they think they want to change, they actually want to stay the same. They want to have their cake and eat it too. So I hope you guys enjoyed this. Thank you for listening. And if you have any other questions or topics that you'd like me to cover either on solo podcasts or with Jess and or Garaja or another guest, please let me know. And thank you for listening to the Refined Strength Podcast. Bye.